And now we have 220 individual members. There are 20 academic institutions that are on our directory. We have 111 paid attendees at this symposium, our largest ever, and it's really exciting to see how the Academic Society is fulfilling our goal of extending communication and helping to expand the body of knowledge in our field. And it's really exciting to be here with all of our colleagues. I did write down a bunch of stuff because there's a lot to remember here, but if we could bring up the slide of all our sponsors. So all of this, everything that we do at the Academic Society would not be possible without the help of our partner institutions. So we want to make sure that, I don't know if Reno's still here, but to thank IAAPA and the IAAPA Foundation, Reno Desheen, as Lori mentioned, the Vice President of Global Education and Member Services. They've been absolutely terrific supporting us. We would not be literally in this room without them. And thank you to the UCF College of Arts and Humanities, my home institution, one of our partner sponsors, the Purdue Fusion Studio for Entertainment and Engineering, the University of San Diego, L. Robert Payne School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, and the UCF College of Rosen College of Hospitality Management. And all of these institutions have done wonderful things in helping to support our efforts today. We are an all-volunteer organization. So everything the TEAAS has done has been accomplished by dedicated members giving their time and their expertise to make extraordinary things happen. So I want to thank all of the members and all of the volunteers. I'd like to single out Dr. Lori Seip, who has done a wonderful job chairing the symposium committee, and all of the volunteers that she's brought today too. And if you would like to volunteer, like to get more involved in the TEAAS, please just talk to me or any one of the steering committee members, Addie Millman, Lori Seip, Catherine Woodcock, and we'd be very, very happy to talk to you about what you can do to join us with the Academic Society. So if you've been to our symposium before, this year we're going to do things a little bit differently. The first half of the day will feature speakers presented by the Themed Experience and Attractions Academic Symposium. And then after the lunch break, the speakers will be presented by the Symposium on Education and Entertainment and Engineering. So we're really excited to be collaborating with our colleagues from the Purdue Fusion Studio this year. It's going to really be a diverse and very informative program. During the lunch break, we're going to have a poster session. You can actually see the posters are back here, there. We're also going to be featuring some of the best in show from the themed attraction showcase. I think some of the winners are here today. I want to acknowledge them, and I'd also like to acknowledge the excellent work done by the students for the poster competition as well. During our a little bit, I think we did order lunch for everybody. So we have coffee in the back here, lunch, there are drinks. I would just make one request: if you're not a vegetarian, don't take the vegetarian lunch right away. We'll leave that for I think we ordered enough, but just keep that for the people who can't eat that. And we do have enough for everybody, but just please be cognizant of that. Good. Carolina is here too. So my second duty is, and a pleasure, is to be able to introduce our keynote speaker for today. So I shortened her bio, but it's still incredibly impressive. So Carolina Cruz-Neira, a member of the National Academy of Engineering, is a pioneer in the areas of virtual reality and interactive visualization, having created and deployed a variety of technologies that have become standard tools in industry, government, and academia. She is known worldwide as being the creator of the CAVE virtual reality system. She has over 100 publications as scientific articles, book chapters, magazine editorials, and others. She's been awarded over $75 million in grants, contracts, and donations. Dr. Cruz is recognized for having founded and led successful virtual reality centers, like the Virtual Reality Application Centers at Iowa State University, the Louisiana Immersive Technology Enterprise and Emerging Analytics Center at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. She's been named one of the top innovators in virtual reality and one of the top 3 greatest women visionaries in virtual reality. Business Week magazine identified her as, quote, rising research star in the next generation of computer science pioneers. She's been inducted as a member of the as a member of the National Academy of Engineering, an IEE Fellow, and an ACM Computer Pioneer. She received the IEE Virtual Reality Technical Achievement Award and Distinguished Career Award from the International Digital Media Arts Association, among other national and international recognitions. She's appeared in numerous national and international TV shows and podcasts as an expert on her discipline, and several documentaries have been produced about her life and career. Currently, Dr. Cruz is my colleague at UCF and serves as the Agere Chair of Computer Science at the University of Central Florida. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Carolina Cruz-Neira.
All right. Well, when my slides come up, good morning to everybody, and thank you, Peter, for such a kind introduction. All that introduction, since I know there's a lot of students in the audience, it boils down to working a lot. So the best time of my career and the way I made it, the way what I am today, is because as a student, I've almost used every available second of my life to mess around with technology, even if it was not my project. I was funded, I was an engineering student, so I was funded through a graduate research assistantship, and through that I have a responsibility of certain projects, but I was always very curious about everything that was in the lab. So, anyway, Anyway, so you probably don't want to do what I used to do, but when I was a student, I used to sleep every other day. That's how excited I was about the technology. So even though I was an engineering student, I was in a program that intersected engineering with art. So I spent a lot of my free time doing art work. So for example, I learned about doing computer animated films, which had nothing to do with engineering, and I had the privilege of having some of those films be featured in film festivals, for example. Every time there was a new technology, and my faculty advisor would be like, okay, whoever has a little bit of time, maybe can figure out how to make this thing work. There was Carolina, at 3 in the morning, messing around with things and trying to get it done. So anyway, for all of your students in the audience, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you might be here, but it also depends on how much of your own time you're willing to invest at this time in your life. I know some of you are anxious to get a job and to make money and all those kinds of things, but that period of time between your undergraduate degree and hopefully a master's or even a PhD degree, that's going to be the most productive time of your career. So I am not a theme park person, and I am not able to page down things, so let me see. I'm not sure what's going on here. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit is extrapolating my experiences on deploying virtual environments in different disciplines and different settings on something that I think is going to extrapolate a little bit to theme park experiences. In addition to my engineering work, I also have an art degree, so I have done quite a lot of installations in museums, as well as dance performances. I've done several staged dance performances where the stage has been virtual reality instrumented, as well as the audience, as well as the dancers. So I have a little bit of extracurricular academic experience. So what I want to talk about is when I was thinking what to say today, so my first thought, of course, within the virtual reality for theme parks is obviously it's going to be a tool to rides. So it allows us to pre-visualize the ride and understand what might happen before the ride is actually built. And of course, it's going to be potentially the technology on which the rides can be built. But if we think a little bit past that, I really think that we are really at the edge of perhaps a revolution on theme parks, because it's a technology that is probably going to have us rethink what a theme park means. And I know here at IAAPA we're very focused on parks that are in a location and not movable. But once we go virtual, then that opens a much wider range of what exactly does it mean to have a theme park. It's a location, it's in a combination of where it is plus what I can take home with me. Is it a combination of all virtual? I don't know, I think there is a lot of questions that perhaps since we are an academic group, might be a very rich area of research to really what is the theme park of the future. So for me, every time I give a talk, I have these few slides that we always go through, because just to be very clear, when we think about virtual reality, I'm very sure here in the audience, everybody's thinking headsets, okay? I'm not gonna talk to you, you tell me that, because that's not true, okay? Because headsets are one implementation of the technology. And I always give this analogy, shoes. Do you own one pair of shoes? No, you don't. You own more than one. Why? Because you have shoes to go running, you have shoes to go maybe to some fancy dinner, and you have shoes to go every day to work. And each one of those shoes are different depending on the function that you are trying to perform. So virtual reality is the same way. Headsets is one implementation, but not the only one. I am not going to go scuba diving in my stiletto heels. Believe me, I will not go on my Pradas. Okay, I'm going to put fins. All right. So it's the same thing when we talk about virtual reality. It's that technology that takes us there, and whatever that they are is, of course, is up to our imagination. So for me, VR is a combination of things, and this is a very good audience to talk about that too, because people think about VR as the entirely digital environments. You put some kind of display and you disconnect from reality and get into some computer-generated space. Now, there is also augmented reality, which is enhancing the real world through digital technologies. I don't make a difference, and I think the theme park business should not make a difference, because all this is, in a sense, a gradient, a continuum, or whatever we want to call it, that is really driven by the experience that we're trying to give to those users. There might be situations where the experience requires us to completely isolate us from reality, but there might be other situations where the experience requires us to just enhance the world around us, and anywhere in the middle. So with that in mind, this is what we all know VR is today. But what about this? So to me, this is a very depressing slide, because here we are 30 years in the middle, and the public perception of what VR is has not changed a millimeter. For the theme park industry, I think this is even more worrisome, because this really, really constrain our creativity, really constrain our ability to create those pretty much out of this world experiences for the visitors to the parks. So for me, when I look at VR, this is what VR means to me. A very, very diverse environment with all kinds of different platforms that are going to be guided by the context on which those platforms need to be used. They're going to be guided by the application. So this is an example on a healthcare application that we're doing right now. So this is the same application, but it's presented to the users, or in your case, the riders, in different manners, depending on who that user is and what the user is trying to achieve in the virtual environment. So we go from simple presentation, classroom style, quasi-VR, to fully immersive VR, going through augmented reality, going through mixed reality, but it's the same application. So whether you are an entry-level student that is trying to learn about anatomy, whether you are a medical resident that is now learning how to do some dissection or some surgery or something like that, whether you are a professional doctor that needs a quick refresher because you are a surgeon and you do surgery on this part of the body, and today you have a patient where you have to go to a different part of the body, so you might need a refresher. So all those different cases is gonna require a different delivery platform in order for the user to achieve the experience that corresponds to the task that they're trying to do. And I think we need to keep that in mind also in the theme park world, because there might be a lot of different levels of experiences, and this ties back to my initial question, you know, how are we gonna conceive this theme park of the future when VR and AR are gonna be key technologies in there? So when we look at it as a tool, virtual reality as a tool for parks, we immediately have to think about digital twins. It's a way to replicate the park in virtual environments. And because of that, then it becomes a tool not only for designers, but for a lot of the other stakeholders. When we do work with engineering and we do digital twins or virtual prototyping, one of the advantages of VR is because we can bring the end users of that engineering technology into VR and operate that technology and give feedback to the designers on any potential problems, on any corrections, or even just preferences or comfort on the product. And all this comes up way earlier in the design process than it used to be before. So of course, including the designers and the visitors is important. Maintenance and repair is another area where perhaps a digital twin is going to be very helpful. Understanding and training all these maintenance personnel, defining all the protocols that need to happen, defining perhaps safety measures, checks, all those kinds of things. Of course, logistics, you know more than I know about park management logistics, you know, how people are going to get in and out, the spaces where the visitors might have to wait, the surrounding environment on the rides and things like that. Marketing might also start way ahead of time, marketing those rides, because now the marketing team can actually virtually ride the ride and understand everything that happens in the ride. I know there's a paper this afternoon where there is a study of what the visitors to the theme park understand the rides are about versus what the Imagineers, designers intended with the ride. So this, for example, can help ahead of time to make sure that whatever the designers had intended actually gets conveyed to the visitors. Certification and safety, that's a big one for me, because again, in the world of engineering, there's a lot of cost involved with certification and physical construction that has to happen for certification. So VR can be something that accelerates those kinds of certifications of any kind, you know, meeting codes, safety, and many other things like that. And then, of course, for decision makers, because ultimately some executives have to say yay or nay on whether or not this is a project that is gonna go through. So it serves for a very broad purpose to help as a design tool for the rides. Now, the challenge is how do we design those rides? And these are some challenges that we face when we do some of our, again, engineering projects as well as the public installations that we do in museums and so on. So first of all, now we are not constrained by physics. So upside down doesn't mean anything in VR. Left and right, fast and slow, big or small, none of those things matter. So now designers have to think differently. So how is that going to change that process? How do we understand that even time is not real time? It can be seconds, it can be milliseconds, it can be hours, it can be years, and it all can happen within a 2-minute window. So there is a lot of interesting challenges, I guess, that we have on how do we think about these rides. Whether those rides are designed to be single user or multi-user. And by that I mean, for example, a lot of the rides today in the parks, I would call them more single user in the sense that you typically sit in some sort of vehicle, and even though there are other people with you in the vehicle, there is really nothing that I do or the other person next to me does that changes the experience. The experience is, in a sense, I'm more of a passive observer of the experience, other than, of course, my emotional response to the ride. Multi-user might be now, depending on who rides with me now in virtual reality, their actions might change my experience. And again, that's a design challenge. How do we think in that manner? How do we think what a user can do impacts the other ones that are on the ride? Of course, now we have to think about how to keep those users really engaged, not so much as passengers in a vehicle, but actually having actionable tasks within the ride. If we want to, we might not want to do that. And also, again, the range between how much all virtual we want to go or how much hybrid do we want to go. Another thing that I find very interesting is changing the persona of the riders. So, will I experience the ride a little bit different if when I'm in the virtual environment, I'm somebody else or something else? I might go to a virtual mirror before I get into the ride and I look like some kind of green alien or something like that, or I look like The Rock, so I'm very big and powerful. So when I go into the ride, will I enjoy it differently because, oh, now I'm The Rock, you know, I see this big mountain, I punch it and I can get through it. Where if I'm like just me, I might just click, you know, don't quite feel like I can pinch it, you know. So there's all kinds of really, really cool and very important, of course. The intended experience is defining the platform, the delivery platform. We cannot start the design process of a ride with a platform in mind, because then it will limit what we do. As an example, we have been working with Peter Weishar and Duncan and Matthew, two students at UCF. We've been exploring some of these concepts through something that we're calling the Pegasus Portal. And the Pegasus Portal came from my lab. We have a lot of tours, a lot of visitors all the time. And we typically have between 15 to 20 stations with demonstrations when you come to my lab. And we lose a lot of time shutting down the system and restarting the systems to switch demos. So we came up with the concept of trying to do like a virtual theme park that as you come into this portal, you travel through the portal and you enter in the different demonstrations. So in that way, hopefully we can increase our throughput through the lab. We are facing quite a number of design challenges, and Matthew and Duncan are working very hard on that, because again, we cannot be literal. The Pegasus Portal is gorgeous, but it's huge. So I cannot have my visitors spending 2-3 minutes virtually driving from one demo to the other one. I need something more instantaneously. So we're exploring with some design decisions on how we can shorten the time, but still not disorienting the users when we're moving large virtual distances in very, very fast time, because we don't want them to feel like, well, we're going from one place to the other. And we have several other challenges, again, that we are exploring, and during the networking session, if you want to talk to me, or Peter, or Matthew, or Duncan, we can tell you more about it, but I'm learning a lot from doing that, because again, I'm not a theme park person. So by trying to figure out how we interconnect things and how we make the actual transferring from one demo to the other one also meaningful and entertaining, as well as being in the demos, it's been quite an experience to do that. We have a lot of operational challenges, and I don't want to invest a lot of time on this because I think a lot of this you might be familiar with. You know, how we get users in and out. When you have headsets, for example, those are single user units. So if you're trying to get thousands of users a day, that becomes a big issue, because how many of those headsets are you going to have to provide large number of users? But at the same time, you also need to provide something that is easy to get in and out. And again, having to sort of suit up and sort of undress, that adds minutes to the experience that are, in a sense, waiting minutes for the next guests into the park. Related to that, we also, I think, at least in the world of engineering we have to be very, very careful with costs. So when you introduce this technology into a park, Are we introducing a technology that the cost of that technology is linear to the number of users? Probably we don't want to do that, because then it's going to be a very expensive ride. If I need to go from 10 visitors at a time to 30 visitors at a time, I'm triplicating my cost. That probably is not very feasible in your world, I suppose, same as the world of engineering. The other concern is launching. If I have a lot of different single individual pieces of technology on my users, how can I guarantee that they are all launching at the same time, that they are all whatever they are supposed to be, that they are all working, all those kinds of things. That's something, again, that we face all the time. You know, fragility of the technology. Is it gonna last for the number of hours that it's supposed to operate? Is it battery operated? If I have a cable, is the cable gonna be resistant enough and not breaking? All those kinds of things that, you know, I'm sure, you know, how many I have to deal with, upgrades, whatever it is, cleanings, all those kinds of things that I have to do. Of course, hygiene is a big issue, especially now with COVID. You know, how do we transfer from one visitor to the next and keep those health concerns? And also there is safety related. We know VR introduces cyber sickness, and there is a lot of parameters that impact cyber sickness. But another thing that I'm starting to see more and more in my world, people are starting to have safety issues because they wear virtual reality, and then they get super excited, and then they actually hurt themselves in real life. Because they have a headset, and they see a virtual pit in there, and they jump on the pit. Well, I'm gonna break my leg in real world if I do that, okay? Or I see something in virtual environments, and I run after it, and I might just run into a wall. So those are serious issues, and I'm starting to see actual lawsuits coming out in public installations related to this. And that for me is very worrisome, because that will hurt your industry, it will hurt my work. So we have to be very, very conscientious on how we design these things to protect those users from not getting overexcited, or so overexcited that they hurt themselves. Then, of course, anything that has to do with replacements, upgrades, maintenance, and so on. Lifespan of the applications has been a big issue in VR in the 30 years that I have been in this world, because we have the technology, the hardware technology changes very rapidly under us, but the software technology cannot keep up. So there's always the decision, do we keep running the ride with older technology, or we invest a significant effort to upgrade it to the next technology? I think it's getting better, but we're still not quite in there. So just to wrap up, just some thoughts about, you know, what we can do with the new theme park concept. And this is just totally random thoughts. I'm happy to chat with everybody afterwards. But for example, obviously, it gives us an opportunity to do some sort of comeback enhancements to the rides in some form. So we know right now there is starting to be a trend where existing rides are being retrofitted with VR or AR. So that gives us an ability to refresh those rides, which I think is very cool, especially for some of us fanatics that we just go to the parks, you know, since we were 3 years old. It's really cool to see something new. But, you know, it's also nice to have some sort of random variations, maybe things that it feels like new, but maybe they were there, but just through VR now we somehow discover something that was there, but we didn't see it before. Maybe there are some characters that come with us along the ride, that those characters changes depending on certain things, I don't know. So things of that nature. But to me, what I think it opens is really the opportunity, and that goes back to design, how we can create those individualized experiences. How do we understand our riders, our visitors? What's the right term? Riders, visitors, I don't know. Anyway, how we can make that experience targeted for them, to feel that it's my ride. It's like a video game, it's my game. So I want to have my experience, my ride. So that to me is very, very intriguing. You know, maybe the park remembers me. maybe when I got there, even though I was there last year, it remembers. And it remembers what I did, so now when I write it, it gives me something just a little bit different, that it makes me excited to come back. Because first of all, it's like, thank you so much, you remember me, I'm so excited. And second, oh wow, I didn't notice this the last time I was there. Maybe, again, there is something that collectively we all experience, but because I'm there, that experience is a little bit different in some form. Depending on who writes with me, the experience is going to be slightly different in some form. I don't know, those kinds of things to me are perhaps the next frontier. I don't have an answer on how we could do that, other than perhaps all of us as researchers maybe start thinking about this way, you know. So is there anything that I can own in that experience that is mine and mine alone? I don't know. There is some roles that are created for my type of personality, my type of preferences, or something that if I'm there on the right, it happens. If I'm not there on the right, it doesn't happen. So there is all kinds of really cool stuff that we can think about. Do we really have to restrict ourselves to just being on location? So, you know, if it's all virtual, or most of it virtual, what does it mean to have a physical location? Now the challenge is gonna be what surrounds the ride that makes people to come back, and not to tell you park managers to say, well, you know, it's all virtual, so just put it out there that I can download it and experience it in my living room. So what do we do to make people want it to come? There is now even more importance, the surrounding experience than just the ride itself. So maybe the park itself becomes the ride. So maybe there is some technology that only happens in the park. Maybe through augmented reality, just being in the physical location, there are some visual enhancements to the location itself that again might change over time. Like right now it's Christmas, maybe there is virtual Christmas decorations that you see through augmented reality or something like that. You know, maybe there are tour guides that come with you in the park through AR or something like that. Maybe there is part of the experience that I can still take home with me to keep me motivated to come back and keep the park alive in my mind, that I should bring it home. Anyway, like I said, this is a bunch of just random thoughts based on my experiences of doing, again, museum installations and deploying the technology inside companies. I find this world very exciting, it's very new to me, so I'll be happy to discuss things with people offline, and hopefully you'll see me again next year, because I think through Peter I'm now hooked up in this crowd. So anyway, that's about all I had to comment today. Thank you.